office, which was right here, Judge Buckler. And they told the judge, we need something done about this. All right, so a couple other people were in play here. There was a guy by the name of Gus Kremkraw, 23-year-old county, anyway, he's law enforcement for the county, not a sheriff. Anyway, it was Gus Kremkraw, 23 years old. He was going to be the translator for the Mexicans. So as he's translating, George Campbell wasn't liking what he was hearing. You know, Kremkraw was actually saying what these guys were saying, were actually speaking, the words he was speaking, but George Campbell didn't like the words that he was saying. He didn't like their story, right? John Hale, he was part of it, and he was watching this all go down, and he just knew at this time that he was going to hang for stealing cattle. They already found 2 of the cattle on his property. He had no defense on it. He knew he was going to hang, so he was a little bit stressed out. Anyway, all the people out here started turning into a powder keg. Everybody thought that everybody else was going to start shooting because all the people that lived here in town went home and got their guns. So this turned into almost a battlefront. Well, they decided to call a recess on the hearing. And so they sent all the vaqueros home. They said, the judge says, take your boys home and bury them. Give them a good funeral. You know, we'll start this up again tomorrow. So they all went home. The day was over. Dallas Stoudemire was watching this whole thing. He was just like, this is a weird town. George was saying, there's your new city marshal. What's he doing? He's not doing anything. He's just letting it all happen. But Dallas was just trying to observe. This is a weird place. It's the weirdest place he's ever been in, you know? And so he just let it happen. So later on, everybody goes home. Dallas goes to the Globe restaurant over there. If you see where it says Plaza Garage, the Globe restaurant was located right there on the other side of the street. So it was right there. So he was over there having some dinner. And George Campbell and Gus Kremkraw, George was trying to go home. This is about 6 p.m. And George is trying to go home. He's putting his gun in his holster on his mule. And not donkey, but mule. It's like F-250 of horses. So he's putting his rifle in there and everything. And Gus Kremkraw comes along. He had heard that George was talking a lot of trash about him. And George is like, no, you know what? You did fine in there. I was just upset. So it's not a big deal. They're having a heated argument for a minute. They kind of worked it out. They're standing right here. John Hale. He was drinking his stress off. He's down at the Pony Saloon down in the corner over here. Back then, a shot of whiskey could be this big. So he had a few of them. Now something about John Hale, 6'9", 6'9", ice blue eyes, a unique character. He was a good guy. John Hale was a Union soldier in the Civil War. He was part of the California Volunteers. They had walked all the way from California here. They got into a couple of skirmishes with Confederate troops on the way here. Confederacy was trying to take over New Mexico, etc. The Confederates were here. This was a Confederate town. You had gray coats here. So anyway, being that Dallas was a Confederate and Johnny was a Union guy, they didn't like each other already. So anyway, this whole area, just to kind of give you how it looked. If you look at Art's shirt right there, that building where that tree is on the right is right where we're standing. So those pillars came out. 6 p.m., it was all shadow. The sun was coming from that direction at that time of year. Dallas was over here in the Globe Saloon. George and Gus were having a discussion right here. Johnny comes creeping his way up this way. His head probably hitting the top of the porch area. He's like that tall, man. He's tall. Anyway, he crept up, and we think he crept up kind of behind George. And he got up behind George, drew his gun, and fired like this. Okay, you stand like this. So Gus is standing right there. Johnny Hale comes over here, draws his gun, puts it right here, and fires at Gus. Yeah, it probably blinds George. But it hit Gus almost point blank right here in the ribs. The bullet cut through both of his lungs, severed some of his arteries, and came out the other side. Most likely, and I've done experiments on this, it set him on fire. The black powder probably set his clothes on fire. Probably pretty dramatic. Now, Gus, of course, is like, what the hell just happened? Something exploded in front of me. Or George. Gus, he gets hit, he comes back here, he falls against the front door of Keating's saloon. He's laying there, he's pulling his gun out like this. George, of course, is in shock. He doesn't know what's going on. Dallas over here, he hears people screaming. He comes running out of the Globe Saloon all the way down here, pulls both of his guns, kept them in his back pockets, pulls both of his guns out, first gun out, takes a shot. That shot hits a bystander. The bystander, a kid named Ochoa, he's just buying peanuts from some guy named Henry Brown. And he's running across the street, round hits him, kills him, drops him right over here. Dallas keeps running at a full run, has his other gun out, a Smith & Wesson Model 3, big old thing, and fires. Boom! At this moment, Hale sees that guy drop, and he's like, whoa, something happened here, somebody else is in play. He peeks out from behind one of the pillars on the building, was right here on our shirt. Peeks out from the pillar. That round comes from about 55 yards away, strikes him right in the head, drops him dead right there. Right there. So of course George runs out into the street like, whoa, 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 what's going on? Gus finally gets his gun out and fires at George. He thinks George shot him because that round came from right in front of George. So he fires at George. The round hits him in the arm. He drops his gun. He picks it up with his left hand like this, because you don't want to be unarmed. And suddenly, he hears Dallas come running, spins around on Dallas. Dallas sees George. He's got a gun in his hand. Gus just shot at him. So Dallas shoots George. Shoots him right in the gut. George goes down on the ground, right in the middle of the street. He's laying on the ground. By this time, Gus is breathing his last breath. He's almost done. He would pass away within seconds. Dallas walks up to George. He sees George laying there. He kicks him over. George rolls over. He's holding his arms. He's holding his gut like this. He says, he looks up at Dallas and he says, "You murdered me, you big son of a bitch." Now George would live another 8 hours. They picked him up and they took him over here to the Overland Stage Building, where he would die 8 hours later. During this time, they continued talking to him. He was coherent. He was articulate. They were able to speak with him, and he was able to tell the whole story in his eyes. So, yeah, this happened right here. They called it at the time the Battle of Keating's Saloon. Later on, they called it the 4 dead in 5 seconds. Probably took a little bit less than that, but it happened roughly 5 seconds. There's a couple Texas Rangers just down the street sitting there watching it happen. They said, "Why didn't you guys get involved?" And they said, "Oh, he had it all well in hand. He knew what he was doing." I mean, it happened so fast, these guys couldn't have even reacted. Zach White had a store over here. Zach White was inside. He's the one that built this building right here, Hotel Paso Ghost. Now, Zach White was inside when he heard the gunfight happen.